don't hold that much memory, and it writes over itself. And for GPS location services, the ping points that we see from Paul's phone on all that data, that would have been on Maggie's phone for the 7th. But for the fact that it wasn't extracted until sometime in like June 16th. I think that's the date, but if I'm wrong, I apologize, but it's around the middle of June. And that ping information that we see on Paul's phone, for Maggie's phone, it goes back to like June the 9th. Well, a lot of good that does. A lot of good that does. We don't have it. We would have had it had they extracted it earlier. Now, Agent Dove says we didn't have an upgraded software that would read it. It took us a while to get it. I don't know why it took them a while to get it. There's really no explanation about that. But you heard about Faraday bags. Put it in the Faraday bag. So it's not pinging against satellites, not overriding. They didn't do that. And it's lost. Had they done it, I hope we wouldn't be here. I hope, because I know it would say, because we have enough evidence in the record, and we have to go around our elbow to get to our thumb to get there, but there is sufficient evidence in the record that shows Alec Murdaugh was not driving down the road, Moselle Road, with Maggie's phone in the car and tossed it at whatever time. When he went by at 9:08. I don't know what time they think it's tossed, but that would have gotten him out of the circle. I would hope, but probably not, because they've been so focused on him. Now, as I mentioned, Alec asked multiple times. I think the testimony was 5 times. Agent Owen, you know, if you get this data, it will show I wasn't there. And you know, we didn't learn why they didn't get it off Alec's phone until very recently, because you'll remember on June 10th, he gave SLED his phone. Yeah, you can copy it. Please copy it. Because it'll show that I wasn't driving, that my phone was not with Maggie's phone at any point in time, going down the road, and that I did what I said I did. Well, they did extract it, but what we've learned, the extraction was a superficial extraction. Not because Alec requested it, that's just what they did. Said a logical surface extraction. So they didn't go in and pull out any GPS pinging data like you see on Paul's phone. They didn't get off Alec's. Now, if Alec had not made those requests to Owen, and they are disputing that, there's one thing you can be 100% sure of, is they would have called Detective Owen up here on the witness stand during their rebuttal case to say, no, he lied. He didn't ask that of me. I mean, they got Sheriff Smalls in here to say, I didn't give him permission to put a blue light in his car. They came and challenged whether he had authority from the sheriff or maybe a deputy sheriff to put a blue light in his car. But they didn't contradict anything you said about, I've been asking for this data that would get me out of the circle. And now we know why it took so long to get the stuff from his car. It's because it's because the FBI wouldn't go to General Motors on this event data. The FBI was up there and they bought a Suburban, they're riding it around, and they're reverse engineering all these systems to try to come up with reports. And then they come in here and tell you, well, it's not complete, some is inaccurate, but this is what we got. And during the middle of all that, that's when, lo and behold, we get OnStar. Thankfully, we did. So then we roll into Labor Day weekend of 2021, where Alec's long-time drug problem, his financial issues, misconduct were exposed. And that made him an easy target for SLED. And I hate to say this, but the evidence is crystal clear. From that moment, They started fabricating evidence against Alec. Well, Mr. Griffin, that's an awful charge. Don't all lawyers accuse law enforcement of fabricating evidence? And I can tell you, this guy right here was a federal prosecutor, was a state prosecutor, and some of my best friends are in law enforcement. And I don't make that claim lightly. Here, what you have heard is they came up with a report that says Alec's t-shirt had high-velocity blood spatter on it. High-velocity blood spatter. What's that? That means you're within feet of a shooting, and they didn't just say any shooting. Said in their report, it says as a result of Paul's murder. High-velocity blood spatter on a shirt as a result of Paul's murder. That was number one. Well, let's stick with number one. Why do I say that it's fabricated? Well, you heard Agent Zapata said we did hemotrace confirmatory blood tests on that shirt. That means there was two types of tests. There's a presumptive test, which is what they use a product called LCV that makes it turn purple, where it might be blood. But it turns purple on other agents as well, including bleach, you heard. You also heard that the shirt came out of the bag wet and it smelled like detergent. Anyway, they spray it, it turns purple in places. So they think, well, that must be blood. Next thing they do at the SLED lab is they do a confirmatory test to see if it's blood. 0 for 74, not blood, not blood. That didn't stop SLED from going out and pursuing with vengeance this report. They didn't give the no blood test result to the guy in Oklahoma, and when it surfaced, they had a problem on their hands, and they were pushing it up until this trial. And you heard the testimony from the stand that they went from Mr. Bloody Shirt leading up to this trial to Mr. Clean during this trial. And they asked him, and they raised issues during the trial with Blanca, where were his clothes? No one's asking about the man's clothes that he had on the Snapchat video back in, at 7 o'clock with his son until November or so, I think is what she said. I mean, the issue of changing clothes, it was late to the dance, because when they went to, as you heard, when they went to the Collin County Grand Jury to get an indictment that you're going to be deliberating on, they told that grand jury they had an expert report that says high-velocity blood spatter. And I asked Agent Owen, I said, when you went to the grand jury and when your guy gave you the report, how'd you not know, you chief investigator, how'd you not know that there's this hemotrace test that says it's no blood? Well, I didn't get the email. I say it in somewhat jest, but, could the dog eat his email? I mean, how's the lead investigator in the case not get the lab report that says there's no blood on the shirt? Now, ultimately it was produced to us, and we were raising Cain about it and saying, how can you say this on one hand and that on the other hand? And here we are with a Mr. Clean theory that he washed off after brutally murdering Maggie and Paul. He takes a hose and washes himself off and gets in a golf cart, butt naked, I guess, and drives to the house. So that's the blood spatter fabrication. The other is this blue raincoat with GSR, and do you remember that testimony? Shelley Smith, who worked for Ms. Libby and Mr. Randolph, had told SLED after September, after Alec's problems had been exposed, after she had a conversation with a Allendale police officer following an accident investigation in which she was in an accident, that on the morning, she said in here, on as she told you, on Wednesday after Mr. Randolph's funeral, and that turns out to be, I think, June 16th, that Alex shows up at the house at Alameda at like 6:30 in the morning, knocking, trying to get in, and he has a blue tarp. And in this blue tarp, she lets him in. He goes upstairs with this blue tarp. He comes back downstairs. He lays this blue tarp out on Miss Libby's retirement rocking chair in the living room, and then he leaves. And then she leaves to go to her day job. And when she left, the blue tarp was laying out on Miss Libby's rocking chair. That was her testimony. And so SLED gets that, gets a search warrant, goes to Alameda, and they seize a blue rain jacket. They seize a blue rain jacket. And when they do, they take that blue rain jacket and they show it to just about every family member. Let me get it right quick. So they can think of, and it's Defendant's 87, Doug, if you can pull it up. But they show this blue rain jacket to as many family members as they can get in contact with, and the rain jacket is, and no one recognizes it. No one sees it. No one said Alex ever worn it. No one said Paul's ever worn it. No one said Buster's ever worn it. No one said Maggie's ever worn it. Have not seen this blue rain jacket. Has not seen this blue rain jacket. One more thing about this blue rain jacket. When they did the search at Alameda, John Marvin was there. And John Marvin asked him, did you find anything? And they said, well, we found a blue rain jacket back on the property. Back on the property. And he said, well, my dad drives a buggy around, and maybe it fell off the back of his buggy. Clearly, John Marvin was understanding that it was back on the property. And then they asked him to come look at the blue rain jacket, and he was told it was found in the closet. And he said, that didn't sound right. And they never clarified it. Now here's a picture. I'm not even going to put it up, but 411 is a picture of this closet. And you can see the blue rain jacket that's just sort of folded up and stuffed down here at the bottom right. That's the blue rain jacket. And apparently right before this trial, they showed Shelley Smith this picture and says, does that look like the blue tarp you saw? She goes, well, yeah, sure, it looks like it. They never showed her this. And she said, this, when I'm saying this, is page 87, it's on the screen. She'd never seen this. But they did GSR testing on this, and says, whew, it's hot. A lot of GSR on that. Manufactured evidence, ladies and gentlemen. And then there's this issue of misrepresenting what are the type ammunition found in the shotguns at the residence at Moselle. Paul was murdered with first shot was a buckshot. Went through his chest. He was turned this way, went in here, and then out under his arm, and that was buckshot. The second shot was into the head, either depending what expert and what pathologist, it's either this way or this way, but into the head, and that was steel duck shot. I learned that you can't shoot ducks with anything but steel pellets because they don't want lead in the water. So you got to have steel pellets. And then Agent Owen testified, admitted begrudgingly that he had testified to the grand jury that there were 4 weapons found up on the property in the gun room, 12 gauges that were loaded, or I'm not saying 12 gauges, I'm sorry, 4 shotguns that were loaded with buckshot and birdshot. There's 4 other ones So that matches. Well, guess what? Totally not true. That was totally not true. And he admitted on the stand it was not true. He admitted telling Alec during the interview, and he said, well, I can do trickery. I can do, and we're going to see that shortly. But and then I said, well, you trying to trick the grand jury? No, I didn't say that. Well, we walked through it, and he did say it. And he didn't remember it, and you'll remember the testimony. And I said, well, people make mistakes, don't you? Yeah, that was a mistake. And it's okay to make mistakes, right? Yeah. And you can make mistakes about time. Well, that's the most common thing people make mistakes about. It's not all right for Alec Murdaugh, who's in the center of the circle, who's not all right for him to make mistakes about time. It is not all right, according to the same investigator who says it's okay, happens all the time. But here we go, and then Eureka. They finally get into Paul's phone in April of 2022, and they see Alec. Well, they don't see Alec. They see Cash the dog, and they see Paul's feet walking around, and they hear voices in the background. One of them sounds like Alec. And off they go. They go off and get an indictment from the Cullinan County Grand Jury, relying upon high-velocity blood spatter, relying upon 4 guns having the same load, and relying upon a rain jacket that's got GSR on it, and Alex lying about being down at the kennels. Now we know, after we've been here 6 weeks, of those 4 things,
Bixby voice privacy contacts have been updated. To continue, review the updated items on your screen.
I'm so sorry. No, that was turned on. I will turn it on. What we know is 3 out of those 4 things that was presented to the Cullinan County Grand Jury that you're going to be deliberating on for the indictments that return aren't true. No blood spatter, no GSR rain jacket that's ever been connected to Alex whatsoever, and there's no loaded gun. So we're left with the lie. We are left with the lie. Now, Alex lied about being down at the kennels in Alameda. And why did he lie? And that is certainly a fair question. And that's, and frankly, I probably wouldn't be sitting over there right now if he had not lied. But he did lie. And he told you he lied. And he told you why he lied. He said he lied because, I'll tell you, he lied because that's what addicts do. Addicts lie. He lied because he had a closet full of skeletons, that he didn't want any more scrutiny on him, which is the most ironic thing in the world, because depending on which day of the week, their theory is that he slaughtered his wife and son to distract from an impending financial investigation. But he puts himself in the middle of a murder investigation, and he puts himself in the spotlight of a media firestorm. That's their motive evidence, and we'll get to that. But he lied. He lied because of his drug paranoia kicked in, and he was clearly in the throes of addiction.
Here we go with the addiction.
He lied for all those reasons. But what he didn't lie for is because he was covering up the fact that he killed Maggie and Paul. That is not the reason he did it. Doug, will you play the dog kennel video, please? I'm going to play the dog kennel video. So just please listen to the voice.
Get back. Quick, Cash. Quick. It's okay. Kevin. Hey, he got burgers now. Hey, Bubba. It's a guinea. This is a chicken. Come here, Cash. Cash. Quick.
4 minutes later, the state would have you to believe that Alec Murdoch up and blew his son's brains out of his head and murders his wife after having that conversation about Bubba having a chicken or a guinea. 4 minutes later, their case wants you to believe that this is a family down at the dog kennels doing what families do. They're checking on a dog, tail, Bubba's out running around, and they're saying, Bubba, got a chicken. Now, why would Alec not want law enforcement to hear that? I mean, there's nothing on that tape. There's nothing on that tape that indicates there's any strife, any conflict, any anger, any planning, anybody being afraid, anybody running, anybody scurrying. Nothing. It's Maggie, Paul, and Alec down at the kennel. That's it.
But he lied.
And their timeline is based on the fact that this automated thing kind of messed me up, but the point I was going to open this up and say, you know, under their theory, if your phone's not moving for some period of time, you're dead right then. You could be run over in the traffic 2 hours later, but if you're not answering a text 2 minutes after you receive it, you're dead at that point. And that's their case. That is their case on time of death. Is phone stop moving, you're dead. You've heard testimony from a lot of witnesses. I would say practically every witness who took the stand, who actually knew Alec and Maggie and Paul and Buster, testified under oath how much Alec adored Maggie. She was his all. Some people describe Paul as Alec's best friend. His relationship with him was awesome. And that was unanimous. Unanimous. I want to just play briefly a clip from Blanca testimony about Alec's relationship with Maggie.
You've also, I think in multiple interviews with Sweat and other folks, described, I think the words were,